had been this series of somebody trying to impart unto me right thinking and good Christian behavior. That's why I went to discipleship. I would go to discipleship to figure out what is the right way to think and then what is the right way to behave. And that was what it meant to me. Thinking, right thinking, and behavior, again and again and again. Right thinking and behavior. And so when I went to go disciple others, man, oh my gosh, you guys, I got the biggest ego blast out of telling them the right way to think. Man, I loved being a discipler. I was like, let me tell you how to think right / like me. And so the Lord in time has been like, yeah, okay, Kendrick, let's strip the ego off of this. Let's roll it back and let's look at Jesus. Let's really just take a look. And so the Lord and I went on our own journey. I actually refused to read any books about discipleship, although I love books. You all know I'm kind of a crackhead about reading. But I kind of wanted to figure this out, flesh this out a little more on my own. So rather than running to 10 different authors about what discipleship meant, I kind of said, let's just stay in Scripture and you and I work through this. And then we can go see what others decide, and it will be so fun to see that so many smarter people have already said it 1,000 times better than I could. And so here's what Jesus and I did. We sat in the Gospels, and as best as I know how to read the Gospels, I started to see, I don't see Jesus often running around trying to impart upon people right thinking and good behavior. That's so strange. In all these stories, this is really weird. I don't see him yelling, Zacchaeus, come out of that tree, I'm going to be your accountability partner. It just did not say that. In fact, he never says that to anyone, oddly enough. I didn't see him saying to the woman caught in adultery, girl, we are going to talk about your behavior. It is shameful. Let's talk about this. I didn't, over and over again, his first interactions with people, and I'm not saying Jesus didn't talk about behavior. He did, for sure. But I'm starting to realize that first, he afforded them his presence. The first thing Jesus did was to draw humanity into his presence. Okay, that word presence, I love that. It's a noun. Okay, here I am geeking out again. And feel free to look it up and tell me I'm wrong. I probably am. But the word presence as a noun, it actually says this: the state or fact of existing or being present in a place or thing. So it's saying a noun, that word presence as a noun, it means the state of existing in a place or thing. So then I said, okay, Lord, if we're going to talk about the state of being, who I am, existing in a place or thing, what was Jesus existing in? He existed in his Father all the time. He even said it. What's his greatest prayer for humanity? Who knows it? It's in John.
John 17.
Which is?
It says that you would be in me as I am in my Father, as I am in you and you in me.
Yes. And they would be in us. Yes. Look, that the world might be saved, right? So if you think of what Jesus wanted more than anything, it was to be in his Father, us and him, I and them, we and us, that we would be one, that we would be in a state of existing in God himself. Oh my gosh. A state of existing in God himself. That's what presence is. And so I felt like the Lord broke this down for me a little bit, and that I kind of got inspired to say, oh my gosh, I think Jesus' doctrine might be presence. I think the doctrine of Jesus might be presence. That he would go around awakening the world that their state of being is in God himself. Everything that Jesus did, everything he did flowed from a state of presence. And so he's talking about, yeah, your behavior matters. Absolutely. Guess where your behavior flows out of? The condition of your heart. Guess where the condition of your heart, what that flows out of? The presence that you're in. If you are in the presence of God himself, the way Jesus was, that was the condition of his heart. He stayed in presence with his Father, and guess what flowed out of Jesus? Good behavior. Oh, how sweet. And guess what happens? You see this all the time in yourself. When you are in the presence of the enemy, what flows out of you? Bad behavior. Shocking. And so what did Jesus keep doing? Did he go after behavior? No, he knows you can do that, but he's so smart. He goes, guess where your behavior flows from? whose ever presence you are in. That's where your behavior flows from. So first, he didn't go after behavior, he went after the human heart, awakening it to its true state of being, which is what? In a place or thing. What place or thing did God say our true state of being is? In his Father. Presence. Jesus had a doctrine of presence. And so that shifted for me. So then I go, okay, based on my new discovery, to me, what is the discipleship? What is the definition? What's my definition of presence? I went back in and I inserted the word. To me, you get to have your own, or you can steal mine. I don't care. There's no copyright here. Take it and run. Disciple. One who agrees, you know how I love that word, with God, which is what I see Jesus doing. Jesus lived in a state of agreement with his Father, and Jesus assisted in spreading, what is Jesus' doctrine? The awareness of his presence. So if I'm going to take out that word doctrine, see, I took out the word doctrine and I inserted what I believe the doctrine to be, and I think Jesus' doctrine was spreading the awareness of presence. Oh my gosh. Now I don't get to sit down and tell somebody all the right ways they should be like me. Weird. Like that changes everything. That like blew up discipleship for me in this sense, because now it was no longer about going out and discipling others in a way for behavior modification, right? And in a way of getting them to think in the right way. Guess what discipling others started to be for me? Just bringing them into my presence. Hanging out with them, doing life with them, walking with them. As I stand in a place of awakened awareness to being in the presence of God, guess what it meant for me to go disciple others? Just get to help them in their journey of awakening to be in the presence of God. Hey, guess what? Wake up. You're in the presence of God. You are in a state of being when you are in God. Oh my gosh. So now, back to Acts 9. So this is how it started to change how I read this story, okay? Here's the background. This whole book, this Acts 9 is about Saul, okay? Saul, you might know as, who's Saul? Got his name changed. Paul. There you go. Paul, who wrote, mostly all the New Testament, was originally named Saul of Tarsus, and he hated Jesus passionately, fiercely, with every fiber of his being, hated Jesus and anyone who had any connection or anything to do with him. To the point where Stephen, who was a follower of Jesus, Paul, or Saul at that time, before his name was changed to Paul, he orchestrated, and we know, based if this is accurate, and whether it's accurate or not, I don't know. In the story it's true, so I feel good about that, that he was at the stoning of Stephen, egging him on. Kill him! Kill him! He's a follower of Jesus. Throw another stone and kill him. He hated all followers of the way. The way was what Christianity used to be called back in the first century, right after Jesus' death. Okay? And so here's where we pick up our story in Acts 9. As Saul, this is the old road to Damascus, okay? Those of you good Bible-knowing people will know this well. And maybe this will be something new for you, I hope. So on the road to Damascus, this is where Saul had his conversion, right? We love that word, we Christians. Oh man, we love that word, conversion. That's a whole nother sermon for a different day. But so he's on the road, and all of a sudden he sees this blinding light, and it drops him to his knees, okay? I gotta be honest, if I saw a blinding light while walking down the road, I too would drop to my knees. And he actually became blind, okay? Blinding as in he physically became blind. He could not see any longer. So he's now on the ground, completely blind. He cannot see, and a voice yells out, "Saul, Saul, why are you out to get me?" I like this, that Saul asks this. He goes, "Who are you, Master?" Some translations say, "Who are you, Lord?" Oh man, I love that. So he doesn't know who this voice is, but whoever and wherever this voice came from, it obviously came with a voice of influence, a voice of, I don't know, authority, power, whatever you want to call it. It made enough for this man who is a known killer to go, "Who are you, Master? Who are you, Lord?" And the voice answers him. It says, "I am Jesus, the one you are hunting down." And then Jesus says, "I want you to get up, enter the city, and in the city you will be told what to do next." It also says that he had companions on the road with him, and the companions were dumbstruck. I found this interesting. They could hear, but they could not see what was going on. So they could hear the voice, but they couldn't really see. They just were like shocked out of their mind, right? They probably peed their pants. They too probably fell to the ground. I'm not entirely sure what happened with the companions, but we know they knew at some level something powerful is going down. Saul ended up being blind for 3 days, and it said he ate and drank nothing. And then our story switches, and it goes over to Ananias. It says, meanwhile, Ananias, who is here's that word, disciple. Ananias, who is a disciple, had a vision. He had a dream. And in the dream, the master cries out to him, Ananias. Ananias answers, yes, master. And then the voice says, get up and go. I love that. So it's saying it twice, get up and go. What do we know Jesus did all throughout the disciples? What did he say to the man on the mat? Get up and go. This seems to be a catchphrase of his, right? Get up and go. Get up, enter the city. Get up, take your mat. Like he's something, I mean, that's a sermon for another time too, but I just thought it was interesting that he says the same thing. And then he says, get up and go over to Straight Avenue. Ask at the house of Judas for a man from Tarsus. His name is Saul. He's there praying. He's had a dream in which he has seen a man named Ananias enter the house, lay hands on him so that he could see again. This is my favorite part of the story. Ananias essentially says, hell no. He says, you can't be serious. You can't be serious. I love that he is so comfortable with this voice of authority that he argues with it. That he's like, oh, flip, no, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not going over to some crazy town with some dude who we know kills people who follow you. So let me think about this. No, thank you. I'm not doing it. That speaks to me because I got to be honest. My first response to God all the time is no. Like, I am such an arguer. I don't know if that's just part of my complicated nature or if I just maybe like to argue, or maybe I'm rebellious. I don't know. Maybe all of the above. But I like that the Bible says, oh, Shalene, it's okay to argue with me. I'm good with that. Like, your kids argue with you all the time, and there's something just so parental about that they have this discourse of arguing. I have no other point to say other than it makes me feel good about myself. And so he argues, no, I'm not doing it. And then I like this. Just like a parent, the voice goes, don't argue. Like, enough. Stop with arguing. Thank you for your opinion. Now shut it. Go. Basically, the voice is saying, I have a plan for his life. And oh, guess what? I have a plan for your life as well. The voice says, I have picked him, and there will be suffering. That's a whole nother sermon too, right? We can pontificate on that for a long time. But I just thought it'd be good to put it in there so we all know it is in there. There will be suffering. So Ananias does it. He goes to Saul and he opens his eyes and then he eats. And so here's how I study the Bible. Okay, whenever I read stories like this, one of the ways I like to study the Bible in lots of different ways, clearly. One of them is I like to ask myself 3 questions. My mommy taught me this, and it was one of the sweetest things my mom, such a gift that my mom gave me, because I was young and having a hard time, and this was so simple, such a simple way to study the Bible. She goes, when you read a story, ask 3 questions. What is this story saying about God? What's it saying about humanity? And then what's it saying to me as an individual? And so I go, great, Jesus, let's use my mommy's skills, my mom's mom skills, and I'm totally going to teach that to my kids, is what does this story say about God? Here's what, and I encourage you to ask those same questions. As you read and you interact with this piece of art, what is it saying about God himself? Here's what I see it saying. God is powerful. Man, he can drop you to your knees in a second. He is supernatural. He speaks in a whole bunch of different ways. In just this story, he spoke audibly, because someone else could hear it. He spoke in a dream. He speaks through other people. Like, he's the kind of God that is speaking all the time. He's also the kind of God that interacts with humans. He is a God of presence. And so that's what this says to me, that he likes to be present in our lives. So I love that. I love that that's, to me, what this says about the nature of God. What does it say to me about the nature of humans or humanity? I see 3 different types of humans in this story. I see the Sauls of the world who've had a dramatically powerful, life-changing awe moment of God, right? Some of you have had that. Like, I know my husband, Sam, and he would be happy to tell you this, but for him, that type of blinding moment, that I need God moment, happened for him at a Young Life camp. And I love that it took my husband 3 Young Life camps in order to come into like the awakening of God, if you will. That he's like, the first 2, he just partied his brains out, and I love that. And so by the 3rd time, something shifted in him to where when they gave the message message, the good news about who God is, that his heart had that Saul-like moment of conversion, if you will. That moment of, to me, I prefer to say it, that moment of awakening, of, oh my gosh, there is a higher power who is not me. Like that moment of, I'm awake. I'm awakening, ing again, the progressive. And so that to me is Saul. And then the next character of this says about humanity is the Ananiases, okay? Those are the people who have just, I kind of see it, and I could be wrong, I'm often wrong, never uncertain, but often wrong, who could be, I see him as having walked with God for a long time. He's just like, I got this Jesus thing down. Like, I'm a disciple. I get your presence. I'm in your presence often, and I'm just with you. I'm with you a lot. I'm with you enough to just argue back, you know? Like, just this sweet thing of like, at the end, he is a yes man, but it clearly his faith and his walk with God has been happening for a long time, I would say. And here's what I like about this type of human, is that when Ananias does say yes to God, he finds himself in the middle of something supernatural and historic, even though it looked so ordinary and so mundane. So I love that. So again, he finds himself in presence with the God of the universe. He awakened to his constant state of being in God himself. And then the last group of humans I see in the story is the companions. And I kind of just think, I love that the companions are so many people in my life who have some kind of encounter with the God of the universe, but they don't quite know what it is, right? It's kind of like they know something's going on spiritually, but they're just not awake yet fully to it, you know? And man, I think most of Christianity likes to call them lost, right? We like to say, well, they're lost. I like to say, or they're just companions, and they're just not having the same experience as the other person on the road. Because you know what? I actually believe that God is big enough to awaken them in his time, in his way. They are not separated from him. They're on the same journey, different path. Different journey, same path. Whatever you want to call it, however you want to say it. I just see a different type of human who is not yet totally awake, not yet totally aware to what's going on. And then what does it say to me personally? You can do that question a couple different ways. I often like to say, who do I relate to most in this story? That's the fastest way I can find out to what the story might say to me personally. At this time in my life, I most identify with Ananias. I like the Ananias in the sense of, I haven't had any really big, blinding light moments, you know, where audible God speaking moments. I've been walking with God for a while. I'm way comfortable enough to argue and curse back at the Lord. But we're just kind of going life as usual, right? And it is beautiful, but it doesn't often seem very exciting, you know? And so this is what I identify most with, is when I feel like God is saying to me, man, I get that you're just kind of living your life, and I'm good with that. And so even though he said this to Paul, and I relate most with Ananias, I like to combine them, right? Because it's art, so I can do whatever I want. I can interpret it in a way that speaks to me. And so I relate most to Ananias as a character, but what God said to Paul has radically shifted my life over the last 2 years now. Shalene, wake up, enter your day, and you will be told what to do next. That is, to me, a life of living in presence. Wake up. Enter your day. As you live in my presence, you will be told what to do next. That, to me, is what it means to be a disciple. So when I say I am a disciple of Jesus, it has very little to do with right thinking and behavior. And it has everything to do with living in presence with God himself. And as I do that, I bump up into all the rest of you. And I get to disciple you by me living in my state of awakened awareness to being in the presence of God, and you disciple me. Because as you live in a state of awareness and presence with God, that shifts and changes my atmosphere, and that disciples me in a beautiful and powerful way. And so I thought that we would kind of end with this, that you would now take a minute and look back at your notes, or actually don't look at your notes, I don't really care, and you don't have to participate in this, but I thought that we would just take a few minutes and let you sit with this, and based on what we just co-created created together, that you would now, without looking at your first definition, rewrite your definition of discipleship. After we've been on this journey together, has it shifted? Have you been inspired? Has it deepened? Has it transformed? Did your first definition of discipleship revolve around behavior? And do you still believe that to be true and good? If so, stick with that and run with it. Man, I'm a big take what's true for you and leave the rest. So sit for a minute and go back and just ask what the Lord might have for you. What does it mean to you to be a disciple? One of the things that I'm going to leave you with is I love to remember, because this speaks to my heart, that God is a God of adventure, big and small. When I look through this book, this library, if you will, I see one adventure after the next. One adventure after the next. As I look back over my life, oh my gosh, my life has been an adventure. It looks really ordinary, but as I start to watch my days add up, I see how adventurous my life actually is and has been. He's the God of adventures, big and small. Like today, wake up. Guess what, Kendrick? Do you want to preach at church today? You get to say no, or you can say yes. I'm good with both. What an adventure to get to do that. You get to wake up. You woke up this morning and go, He invited you to come and to be a co-creator with me and with Him in the message today. Like your presence matters here. Like you're not just sitting and listening. Who you are is impacting and having a dramatic effect and change in the atmosphere. But there's no more power from this stage just because I happen to be the one standing, right? Like we live in a world, especially a Western world of hierarchy, where we kind of see whoever's up front, man, they're going to be the teachers and we're going to be the followers and the listeners, and I just want to dispel that hierarchical culture. Let's not live like that. Let's live in parallel and in tandem, in equality with one another, that you are as much a co-creator in the message that happened today as I am. And then you get to now take this message and go out and keep co-creating it or change it altogether, I don't care, and make your own, and then go live that out. And that to me is what makes art so inspiring. That as an artist, which I'm not, you hear something, see something, and experience something, you're inspired by it, and then you go create something else, right? Based on that to which you were inspired by, right? I love that. And I want this to be today. I want someone to say something to you at your table that inspires you, and I want you to go home and make a painting or write a song, or tell a story to your kids in a different way because of it. So I'm gonna pray, but here is Dan